Today I have the four hardest books I've ever read, and people told me to hold the books up more, so I'm going to do that right now. The book that you can't read is Tao Te Ching, but with that said, we'll get into the first book. And the caveat I have to include with this list is I've not yet read Finnegan's Wake, but it would certainly be on this list if I had. And with that said, let's get into Ulysius. Ulysius is notorious for being one of the hardest books ever read. It's only rivaled by perhaps Finnegan's Wake, which is James Joyce's work after Ulysius. And the overall premise of Ulysius is James Joyce's attempt to recreate the Odyssey in the lives of everyday Dubliners. And you can see that the characters are very much analogous to certain characters in the Odyssey. This is a book that you can't actually read normally. It's a book that you have to have companions with. I found it very helpful to have ChatGPT pulled up, and I would ask certain references. I would try to understand certain chapters through the summary that ChatGPT would give me. And overall, the problem with this book is it's so dense. It has so many references. It has so many jokes. It has so much blending through dialogue with actual thought, with shifting narrators, with different styles, and it's an experience that you have that is unlike reading any other book, and it's a very rewarding experience when you get out on the other end of it. But the problem with this is what James Joyce said himself. He said, I wrote this book so that professors for the next 100 years will be debating everything I said in every single sentence. And he clearly did that, and I think Carl Jung perhaps put it best when he said, James Joyce is either purely insane or so sane that he seems insane to normal people. And that is perhaps the best definition of him, because he captures the human experience better than anything else I've ever read. Even his shorter stories, he's able to capture a essence of humanity that is missing in most great works. The thing about Joyce is Joyce didn't like to write about people that were princes, that were kings, that were heroes, that were great individuals. He liked to write about real individuals. He liked to write about people with vulnerabilities and people with different sorts of issues, and relatable issues at that. And that's really what you get through Ulysius. And I think if you read the work of Ulysius, it's a book that you can read time and time again. And I'm excited to pick it up again. I'm probably going to do a thing. This is what one of my favorite authors did. Robert Anton Wilson would read Ulysius and Finnegan's Wake every single year. So after I read Finnegan's Wake, that's probably what I'm going to start doing. Every single year, I'm going to try to get some new interpretation. I'm going to try to get some new enjoyment. I'm trying to get a new layer of this book. But this is really a book that you can't just read once and hope to grasp anything from. Like, the bits and pieces I understood, I love the book, but it just made it that much more motivating for me to go back and look for more and more and more and more and more. And with that said, I think I've talked enough about Ulysius. This is a book that you should really prepare yourself to read, because it's something that is extremely hard, extremely difficult, extremely long, and all over the place. But when you can get a single thread of what Joyce is trying to put forward, you have a great book and a great experience. And the next book is very different in the sense that it's not very long. This is a book I actually just read, the Bhagavad Gita, or just the Gita. I'm probably saying it wrong. Please correct me if I didn't say it properly. The basis of this book is that there's a prince talking to Lord Krishna, and basically he's asking him for guidance, he's asking him for wisdom, and he's asking him for strength for the upcoming battle. And the book is really a metaphysical guidebook to a good life, a understanding of certain principles that kind of transcend the material world and blend into the spiritual aspect of things. And I'm really impressed that in like the 70-80 pages, how much it can get across and how much meaning and depth it can express. But the reason I'm including this as one of the harder books I've read is because this is a book that I read and I know I missed a lot. And I fairly often think I get most of the benefit of a book reading it a first time, but this is a book that I read and I'm like, you know what, I probably should devote more time to it. I probably should return to it, because I think it was Gandhi that said the Gita is a book that if you meditate on daily, you will get a profound experience every time. And basically what he's saying is that to grasp the whole meaning of it is to repeatedly go through it and through it and through it. And even at that, I don't think this is a work that you could ever quite understand fully. And that's really inspiring to me, and that's really something interesting. And it's so awesome that so few words could have so much meaning and so much depth and last so long. So this is really a book that you should pick up. Some of the cool ideas I found from this were the idea of a monad, the idea that everything is connected, and that when you do harm to someone else, you're really doing harm to yourself. When you judge someone else, you're really judging yourself. And I think there's certain fundamental truths that exist in the Gita that are really, really, really important, especially for this time, because it feels like we've never been so judgmental. It feels like we've never been so quick to, point the finger and say this person's ruining the world, this person's doing this. We've never been so quick to anger and so quick to violence. And I think through reading works like this, we really can prepare ourselves for, a better world. As Gandhi said, I'm going to quote Gandhi again: be the change you want to see in the world. If you want to see a certain trait, if you want to see a certain characteristic, you have to embody that. You have to be that first before you can ask it from others. It's the same thing as what the Bible said. Let he who has no sin cast the first stone. How dare you judge others before you turn that judgment on yourself first? And if you fix your own issues, you don't ask anything else from other people, because you already have everything you need. And that's really the secret to world peace. The secret to world peace is inner peace. If you could fix yourself, then you could be a whole lot better to the people in your life. You could be a whole lot better in your relationships. And this is really the central idea of this entire work. But with that said, we'll get into the next book. The next book is a very similar one, the Tao Te Ching, or the Tao Te Ching. I don't say it right because I've only read it, and I got in a bad habit of saying it. But it's really the Tao Te Ching. It's spelled Tao. Don't ask me why. I don't know Chinese. I'm not good with linguistics aside from English. So there's that. But this book is honestly a mystery. The origins of this book are not really well known. People don't even know if Lao Tzu was a real person. People don't know if he actually wrote it, or it was a composition of various different works. They don't know the intention of writing it. Some people think it's a guidebook for being a good leader. Other people think it's a guidebook for life. And the phrases in this book are so profound, and they can be taken in so many different ways, that even though this book is only like 40 pages long, you can still gain so much insights from it. You can still understand so much from it. Like, there's probably thousands and thousands and thousands of different translations of this book. It doesn't matter which one you get. Each one will leave a lasting impact on you, and each one will affect you in a profound way. Some of my favorite phrases from this book is basically the more laws you create, the more criminals you create. And I think that's something that we see more and more today, because it's very weird that people think that the solutions always come through legislation, that the solutions always come through making something criminal, when really it's the mind that has to change. It's the individuals that have to change. It's the cultures that have to change. And another thing that I found super, super profound, I actually got a comment about this the other day. I said something about, I was talking about The Alchemist, and I was saying that the central theme of The Alchemist is that the boy goes out and realizes what he was looking for was there the whole time. And someone was like, this doesn't make sense. And of course, it's a paradox. It's not supposed to make sense. But the phrase from the Tao Te Ching that reminded me of this idea is that the one that goes further to seek is further from what he was looking for. Meaning that when you go out, when you try to find something in the world, when you try to do something in the world, you already missed the point. The point is that every single material thing you're seeking out is really trying to make up for a spiritual lack, a lack of fulfillment, a lack of purpose. Every time you try to get a bigger house, a fancy car, anytime you try to chase material things, what you're trying to do is you're seeking out the approval of others so that you feel good about yourself. So that you in turn say, well, this person likes me, so I must have to like myself. But the truth is, whatever people give you externally is never good enough for that internal, is never good enough to suffice for that. And that's simply one phrase in the Tao Te Ching, the Tao Te Ching. I have to start saying it right. But that's simply one phrase. And it's phrases like this that keep me coming back, that keep me studying this work. Like, this is not really a work that is very approachable, especially if you're not familiar with Eastern ideology, especially if you're not familiar with Eastern philosophy. And I think it's something that it's more beneficial to read people's interpretations. And that's how profound this book is. That's how interesting this book is, that people's interpretations of this work that's thousands of years old is just as inspiring as the original work, because it has so much depth, because it has so much to say about the world, because it is so profound. And one of the opening phrases, I think it's in the opening, it's the Tao that can be spoken about is not the true Tao. And what he's saying here, what Lao Tzu is saying here, is that the essence that we describe in this book, the phrases that we describe are only an approximation of the actual order, the actual way of things, the actual oversoul, or the actual force that controls everything and dictates everything, whether you think it's chance, whether you think it's God, whether you think it's like something like that's really what it's talking about. And this is a great book. But on to the last one. The last one is the Red Book. This is a, I don't know how to describe this book aside from what Carl Jung said about this book. And he said, to the outside observer, this would look like pure madness, but to me, it was responsible for all of my success. And to describe the Red Book is to vastly oversimplify, but I will try. The Red Book is basically Carl Jung confronting his own soul, confronting his own unconscious, confronting his own demons. And if you're unfamiliar with Jung, this is not something I recommend you pick up, because it's going to really confuse you, because he interplays his unconscious images and all of these different things with his own psychological terms, and it's really chaotic, it's really a mess, and at times it's very difficult to follow, but at other times you can grasp great meaning. But I don't think this is a book that you can ever really understand, because it's Jung's own experience, it's Jung's own psyche, it's him confronting his own demons, and because of that, it has an air of mystery. It has an air of something that you'll never quite perceive because you're not Jung himself. And what Jung set out to do in this book is he basically had a falling out with Sigmund Freud. And what really sprung this out is that Jung believed that there was more to the psyche than just pure psychosexual theory. And basically, this rift, this split, made it so that Jung basically lost all of his credibility. Freud was basically grooming Jung to be the next successor, to be the next great psychologist, and really carry out the profession after Freud retired, after Freud died. And after this, Jung kind of had a crisis. He kind of went, I wouldn't say crazy, I wouldn't say mad, but he kind of had like a depressive episode. And through the course of a few years, he started writing down these journals. And during these years, he would do this thing called active imagination, which is basically just, I don't know how to describe this without sounding like crazy. Like this blends the line of insanity, but it's only through Jung's great work after the fact that you can tell it's not a work of pure insanity. It's almost confronting the craziness in yourself to find the saneness. And basically what Jung did was he went into his imagination, and in his imagination he allowed the forces of his imagination to take over and to guide him and to bring him through the experiences that he needed to experience, to teach him the things that he needed to integrate about himself. And basically what Jung described this process as was going to the depths of hell, going to the depths of his soul, the depths of his psyche, to confront his demons, to confront his devil that he created, to confront the traits and the attributes and the negative things about his personality and bring them to the light, because it means nothing for you to live in the light and deny the darkness, because that leaves you susceptible to the darkness. That makes the darkness stronger. That makes it more capable to take advantage of you. But when you bring the darkness to the light and you integrate it, then you can use that evil for good. Then you can use those negative characteristics for good. Think of like when someone is very clingy and they're texting their significant other and they're like, where are you? What are you doing this? Like all that is simply wanting to know that the person's safe, wanting to know that that person loves them and that you just care about them. But instead of expressing that, you express this jealousy, you express this rage, you express this anger. And it's like when you understand these things and you can start to curtail your emotions, your reactions, your actions towards other people, when you can start to see it in this light, then you can start to heal these things. And that's really what Jung is talking about in this book, but it's really steeped in some of the deepest allegory you'll ever encounter. It reads like something of Crowley. It doesn't read of something that Jung wrote. It reads like esoteric works that are lost through the ages. And it's so interesting to see one of my favorite authors write in such a manner and write in such a way. And be so different than his normal approach. But with that said, these are the 4 hardest books I've ever read. The big caveat is that I have not yet read Finnegan's Wake. When I do read Finnegan's Wake, I'm going to have to make an amended list because I've heard that that book makes Ulysius look like an easy one. But with that said, if you enjoy challenging books, if you enjoy books that you have to come back to fully grasp the understanding of, these are great books to pick up, and you'll really, really gain a lot if you have the patience and if you have the time and if you have the dedication to put in the work, to understand these things, and to use these lessons to improve your own life. Because it's really easy to say a lot in a cookie cutter book, but it's really hard to leave a lasting impact because it's so surface level. But when you dive deep down in the depths of the soul and you find something there and you bring that back, that is something that will forever change you. And that is what all of these books are able to evoke in you. That is what all of these books are able to capture and able to give you for the rest of your life. An experience that is unlike any other. An experience that is unlike anything that you could ever live out. An understanding that you can carry into your world to make your world a better one. With that said, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I will catch you in the next one.